There we go. Record. It's always better. Hello, Kate here from Womankind, wishing you a warm welcome to Cyclical Living Unwrapped, where we explore the gifts and challenges of cyclical life with experts in the field of menstruation, perimenopause, and cyclical living. And today I'm talking to Jyoti Mayani. And Jyoti is the founder of Jyoti. She guides conscious souls to reclaim their menstrual cycle and live in sync with their body's natural rhythm through wellness rooted in indigenous wisdom and rich tradition. Jyoti is a yoga teacher, menstrual cycle coach, and host of Decolonizing Wellness, the podcast. Her offerings include one-to-one coaching, retreats, workshops, and more. And we're going to hear all about where you can find her and all about her latest offerings very soon. Thank you so much for joining us for Cyclical Living Unwrapped. It's lovely to have you here. Can you tell me, please, what is your summer superpower?
Yes. Hi, Kate. Thanks for having me.
Oh, you've just frozen. Oh, I'm in Zoom.
I have really been tapping into that recently. I think.
You just froze. Could we start with the question again?
Yes. Oh no, is the internet not good?
Oh, okay, I can edit it.
Okay, let's try again. Hopefully it doesn't freeze again.
Can you tell me what your summer superpower is, please?
Yes. So I would say my summer superpower is just feeling really vibrant and like tapping into that queen energy and owning that. So I think before, before I was aware of what menstrual cycle awareness is, I didn't realize that this was happening, but now I am aware of it, and I've really been thinking more about that summer energy, the mother archetype, the queen energy, and that kind of thing. So really just tapping into that, which kind of comes full circle because, as you said, my business name is Jyoti Rani, and Rani means queen in Sanskrit or Hindi. So that kind of works really nicely. So yeah, just kind of owning that energy. I think often as women and people who bleed, we're really encouraged to keep ourselves very small. But for me, like it's been a journey, my menstrual cycle journey as well, to just like own who I am and how I'm feeling, and if I'm feeling good and think that I look good or something like that, like not being afraid to own that, really, because we're definitely not encouraged.
What does that really mean, to own that? I'm really curious.
I think like not shying away from it, like when someone says, oh, you look nice, like not being like, oh no, like I don't even have makeup on today, or like, oh no, like, like dismissing a compliment. I think just like saying thank you, and just kind of leaving it at that, which I think is, I'm still on this journey, but that can be difficult. And yeah, sometimes just saying like, I think I look really good today, like, oh, look at this really nice picture or something, those sorts of things. Like recently I was at a wedding and someone said like, oh, you look amazing. And I was like, I know, I really feel really good as well. Like my sister had done my hair and makeup, and I just felt really great. And it's nice to embrace that, I think.
Oh yeah. And I feel very expanded hearing it. I really like to hear people enjoying the way they look, and observe people enjoying the way they look. I think it's infectious.
Yes.
I think it gives everybody permission to own that queenly energy. Is there anything that trips you up in summer?
I think overbooking myself and just being too busy and perhaps not leaving that time for myself. So, I have many like wellness practices that I like to do, and, things that ground me and I always come back to, simple things like journaling and breath work or asana practice, like the physical postures in yoga and things like that. But I think sometimes in summer, because I am feeling so great, I don't necessarily feel like I need to do them, which is fine. Like, I don't, I don't have to do all of these things every day. But sometimes I can trip myself up by just abandoning everything. And then when it comes to that, autumn energy, kind of thinking, oh, what happened? That kind of thing, which is definitely something that been thinking about more, and how I can just have a few simple touch points, perhaps in a winter phase, like when I'm on my period, it's much more elaborate, like what I'm doing, and much more, introspective. Whereas with summer being a bit more outward facing, just, like those small touch points.
Sometimes I think that when we're in high summer energy, this part, the queenly part, thinks, well, I'm so fantastic, I don't need that. Self-care is for wimps. Look at me.
Absolutely.
Completely carried away.
Yeah, and then autumn comes and whips you back into shape.
Yeah. So here we are into autumn. So what does that crossover feel like for you into autumn? How do you know you're crossing?
Yeah, great question. I think it's like a slight dip in energy, and that, that outwardly facing sort of changing to that inwardly facing, and just wanting to be alone a bit more. Um, yeah, I think that's kind of how it feels for me.
And what supports you?
Um, so actually recently I've found that lifting weights in my inner autumn feels really good. And sometimes, like, in other parts of my cycle where I thought, where we're told, oh, this is a great time to lift weights, actually I find it much more difficult. Like, as I'm coming off my period into my inner spring, for example, it feels really good in autumn. So I've been kind of incorporating that a bit more. And then things like, trying to avoid certain types of foods, so like fried foods. I know that doesn't necessarily help when my bleed's going to come around. Um, the few days before my period, like trying not to do like cardio and things like that, just to really start to slow down. Yeah, and just taking time to journal, something that I love doing. Like, I do the morning pages most mornings. So journaling, yoga, and all parts of yoga, breath work, meditation, the physical practice, and so on, and mantra chanting as well. Like, getting those sacred vibrations and things can be really, really supportive as well. Yeah, those sorts of things.
And there are other particular gifts that you'd like to share about your autumn, because it gets a pretty bad rap from in the mainstream. So it's always really nice to hear your unique gifts that you experience in your autumn.
Yes. For me, I feel more focused. Like, I'm like, okay, I think I know like that the end of the cycle's coming. So there's certain things that perhaps, intentions that I'd set, or things that I wanted to do in my business, that I'll really be able to focus and work towards, perhaps more in this phase than other phases. Um, I always get these like couple of days before, just before my bleed comes, where it's like, okay, we need to do all the things. So, like, that big pile of stuff that you just couldn't be bothered to take outside to the bin, or, whatever it is, clothes you couldn't be bothered to put away. I suddenly have the energy to really just get through that stuff. Um, and I think, doing this work, knowing that my bleed's coming and I want to be able to rest as much as possible, it's like an extra incentive. Like, okay, let's kind of close the loop on this cycle and give ourselves as best possible chance to rest, as I can. So yeah, doing things like that. Yeah.
And what does your winter look like? What does the rest? What is the quality of rest that you bring into your winter time?
So it really varies. Sometimes it's a resting by actually being able to sleep and napping in the day, which, if I'm able to, is the absolute dream. But obviously that's not always possible. sometimes it can just be as simple as slowing down. Like I'm someone that moves quite quickly. I think I'm probably talking quite quickly right now. I just do things quite fast. So just bringing a bit more mindfulness to what I'm doing. So instead of like running down the stairs, and I don't know why I run down the stairs normally because I'm not in a rush to get anywhere, just walking a bit slower and just, slowing down my movements. And even as I'm saying that, I've just slowed down when I'm talking and just, yeah, bringing that quality to things, even if I'm not able to physically stop what I'm doing. In an ideal world, that's what would happen. I'd be able to kind of retreat to my menstrual cave for like a good 3 days and have a big bleed every period. But, unfortunately, that's not possible at the moment for me.
Could you
So,
say what
yeah,
you mean by a big bleed in case people?
yes, of course. So it's coined by Red School, and it's essentially having like your dream period, whatever that looks like to you. So yeah, like maybe just napping, eating chocolate, watching Netflix, whatever it would mean to you. Yeah, just having that time really, that sacred rest. Yeah, I think just bringing micro rest into it, into my day can be really powerful. And another thing that I love to do, which I learned from Claire Baker, who I did my cycle coach training with, is tarot. So I'll pull 4 cards, kind of one for each phase of my cycle, and just journal on that and check in with that. Like it's a really nice touch point then throughout my cycle to check in with the energy and to see how it's manifesting, if it's manifesting.
So you're pulling cards during your period to kind of create focus and rhythm through the rest of your menstrual months. Is that what you mean?
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
What a gift.
Yeah. So,
That's such a great tip.
yeah, I love it. It's probably the one thing that I do every cycle, no matter what. Even if I'm super busy, I'll find time to do that.
Mm. And do you schedule your diary around your cycle?
Yes, I do. I try to where possible. So yeah, again, like when I'm on my period, coming towards the end of it, day 5 or 6 for me, I'll get my diary out and think about, because I like to physically write. So I'll get my diary and think about, like what are the tasks I need to do this month for my business and my personal life, in my other job that I have, and then think about when's best to do those and try to schedule them where possible. It's definitely easier in my business to do that because I'm my own boss, whereas in the other work that I do, I'm not my own boss. So it's not as easy. And even in my personal life, sometimes we do have to go out, don't we, on our periods, even though we don't want to, or at least for me, I don't want to. So yeah, just trying where possible to work with my energy levels. And that's obviously where tracking your cycle is so helpful, isn't it? Because I'm pretty attuned to how I'll be feeling, even though every cycle can be different. I've got a pretty good idea of how things will go.
So you have a fairly regular cycle, so you can, and of course, naturally, you have this deep connection with your inner season, so you can feel where you are, even if your cycle is different to normal.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I'd say I have a fairly regular cycle. It's like 28 to 33 days, depending. Um, but yeah, it's relatively regular, and I do track my temperature as well, so I have a pretty good idea of what's going on.
Yeah. I wonder whether we've got time. Yeah. Why don't you say more about checking your temperature? Because again, people might not know about that or what that is.
Yeah, of course. I mean, I'm not a fertility awareness method teacher or anything like that, but so I take my basal body temperature every morning when I wake up, and put it into my Read Your Body app. And then essentially when my temperature rises, and there's all sorts of rules around it, which I won't go into because I'm not an expert on it. I can do it well enough for myself. But anyway, once you've had a temperature rise, it confirms ovulation, as well as looking at either your cervix position or your cervical mucus, as well. So tracking that as well, one of the two. So you need two of those signs. Hopefully, I'm making sense here, to be able to confirm ovulation. So then I know roughly when my period will be coming from then.
Which will then be 14 days after that, after that rise in temperature.
Yes, sometimes, not always 14 days for me, but yes, I think there's a rough
Approximately.
period.
Yeah, useful. I mean, that, you know, for us in this business, it's, you know, it's like BBT. We would, you know,
Yes.
shorten it. But it's good to remember that in the wider population, people might not know about that, and it's,
For
you know,
sure.
knowing when you ovulate is just so useful. Whether you're trying to get pregnant, trying not to get pregnant, if you're in perimenopause, knowing if you've ovulated is, you know, really useful information. Really
For
useful.
sure. I was going to say that I think a lot of people think you only need to do that if you're trying to get pregnant, but actually it has so many benefits. And you know, if you don't ovulate, that can tell you something about your cycle, and you might need to go get something checked. And yeah.
I'd love to hear about the challenges and joys of your springs of post menstruation.
Yes. So less so now, but definitely last year, the one of the biggest challenges for me as I came into my inner spring was feeling really anxious. Like I had a lot going on. I was planning my wedding. I just moved house. I wasn't, you know, living in a familiar place anymore. Like I, you know, moved closer to London and those sorts of things. So there was a lot going on. If anyone has ever planned or been to an Indian wedding, you'll know it's not just one event. It's pretty crazy. So I think that was like exacerbating everything. But yeah, like I was just feeling so anxious and I'm really struggling. But like I guess the saving grace was knowing that it will pass, and it wasn't that I was feeling anxious all the time. It was in those few days. So you know, I did the many practices that I've already mentioned, breath work, journaling, and you know, started having therapy even and things like that, just to try and support myself in general, which was really helpful. Nowadays, I'd say like I can still feel that anxiety sometimes, but it's definitely not as strong as it used to be. And I think the joys are that like feeling that freshness, that rise in energy, and that kind of childlike excitement of like, oh yeah, okay, I've got my energy back. Like, let's cook a really nice meal and let's go outside and you know bask in nature and just enjoy life. I think I feel like a real sense of gratitude after my bleed. Yeah, and a real rise in energy, which I can now kind of enjoy. And yeah, like you, I don't know if utilize is the right word. Like it doesn't. I think it was, you know, the same thing was happening. It was that rise in energy, but it was causing anxiety. Whereas now it's like, woo, let's go, let's you know do these things. Yeah.
What day of your cycle do you feel that rise, whether it's anxious or joyful?
Around day 7 to 9 ish. Yeah, so I'm on about day 10 or 11 today. Um, so yeah, definitely was feeling that a couple of days ago.
Thank you. It's really interesting to hear the variation in when people start to feel that rise of energy.
Mm,
There's about a week's worth. You know, some people say day 2, 3,
yeah, wow.
7 to 9. I mean, that for somebody new to menstrual cycle awareness, it's just I think that people associate the end of their periods with spring arriving, but actually
Yeah.
it can be, there's quite a lot of variation into when that rise in energy can
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you're so right. Yeah, I think for me, like my bleed does feel like a good week. Um, Maybe not obviously that in intensity is probably 1 to 3 days, but then even after, like I'm still feeling a bit lower in energy. But yeah, it is interesting how for some people it is by like day 3, they're like, let's go. And I'm like, I can't imagine feeling like that. But it's, you know, everyone's so different.
Oh, and I'd love to hear more about your work, But first of all, can you tell us where we can find you? Where do you hang out on the interweb?
Yes, so I have my beautiful new website, which is www.jyotirani.com. That's JYOTIRANI. And everything's on there, my coaching, my blogs, my retreat waiting list, and anything else that I will do in the future. And then I also have my Instagram page, which is underscore Jyoti dot Rani underscore. And yeah, like I'm on there more now than I used to be actually. So there's lots of fun stuff happening on there, and informative posts and conversations and things. Yeah, those are probably the best two places. I mean, from my Instagram, there's obviously my link in my bio, which has everything, like my link out to my YouTube, my insight timer, because I've got loads of meditations on there. Also, I definitely say to join my mailing list, especially if you like meditating, because I have 4 free meditations, one for each phase of your cycle, which you get if you sign up to my mailing list for free. And they're really nice. They really take you through the different things that you can do in those in each phase. So like in summer, we practice gratitude, and at the end of each one, we think about how we're feeling and do a cycle check-in as well.
What a gift. That's lovely. Thank you so much for
Thank
sharing
you.
your experience of your cycle and the seasons and your wonderful work. And
thanks for having me.
Oh, it's great. I'm loving this series. I'm just so fascinated in how it shows up and how everybody cares for themselves differently.
Yes, I'm just gonna have to move with you because someone needs to come in here, but we can keep talking for a couple of minutes if you're
all right. And if listeners are curious about your inner seasons and your navigating perimenopause, well, Jyoti takes us on a walk across your working. It looks a very nice shared space there.
It's lovely.
You might enjoy our self-directed course, Perimenopause Unwrapped, which you can find at woman-kind.co.uk. And that's where you can shine a light on the unconscious processes that are colouring your perimenopause experience and bring more awareness, choice, and compassion to your transition. We'd be delighted to welcome you there. And if you have any questions, you can contact us through our site. All the details are in the show notes. Jyoti, thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been so fun to talk to you.